What's going on, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Carbonite Bounty BS with me and the nerds here. Hope everybody's doing well, and
Whew.
you know, glad to be live with everybody. And before we dive into this, we are going to be reviewing today the Mandalorian season 3 premiere. Joke, all jokes aside, all jokes aside, all jokes aside. I know, it's corny, but yeah, we are going to be reviewing Boba Fett Chapter 5, dubbed the Return of the Mandalorian.
The return of the Mac.
The
He's
return.
back.
So for those who haven't watched it, sorry if we're spoiling it for you. You should have watched it by now 2 or 3 times. But before we even dive into this, episode and what we think about it, let's let DP let you guys know where to find us at.
Nerdcyclopedia.com. People, make sure that you go into that site and on your favorite platforms, Instagram, Facebook, and also Twitter. We are at Nerdcyclopedia. Make sure that if you're watching with us right now on YouTube, you hit that subscribe button and also hit that notification button. So anytime that we're on, you know that we're on. Make sure that if you're watching us on Facebook Live, thank you. Make sure you comment and leave us some feedback and everything over there. We also have a Facebook group called Carbonite Bounty BS, the Star Wars group. Leave all your favorite memes, leave your comments, and especially about tonight's episode. It was just like some crazy stuff happening tonight. Some really decent stuff. Also, if you are listening to us on podcast, we're on Stitcher, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google Play, Apple Podcasts, anywhere that you listen to your favorite podcast, we are there. Most of all, leave us some feedback. Nerds at nerdcyclopedia.com. We love getting your feedback, and we love issuing you feedback on our stuff. Thank you.
Good stuff, DP. And yeah, man, what a way to kick off these final few episodes, man. I'm at a loss for words, really. It's not what I expected at all, but it was thoroughly enjoyed on a multitude of levels we'll get into on our review here. But before I get going, and I'll say mine, I'll save myself for a laugh. Let's let our resident, neutral as he calls himself, even though we've converted him over. Let's let DP let us know what his initial reaction's like.
All right. All right. So we got the end of last episode with like the thematic cues, music cues for the Mandalorian. So we know that we're going to get some sort of Mandalorian stuff for this episode. They had me at Dark Saber. I mean, whenever you have that in the episode, especially at the beginning, when he pulls that out, oh my goodness, I just almost jumped out of my chair. It was a great episode of The Mandalorian. I'm glad they titled it The Book of Boba Fett, to keep all my, all the viewers, not confused as to what they was watching. It was a stuff. But yeah, it was a really great episode for me. And I was reading some comments online, it's critiques as to whether this episode does Boba Fett doesn't do the Boba Fett series justice by bringing in Mandalorian to take over stuff to make it a lot more exciting. We were talking off mic, T-Mitch and I discussing the fact that does this episode even fit in the whole Book of Boba Fett? We're supposed to be watching Book of Boba Fett, but here we're getting a whole Mandalorian episode. Not a couple scenes, not just a cameo appearance. We got a full-fledged whole episode of the Mandalorian. And he said it could have been like the season premiere of Mandalorian, but thus it's an episode sort of like a bottle interlude for the Book of Boba Fett. Now, for me, I'm satisfied with that. Well, actually, I'll get into it early, but overall, I love the episode. I love getting the whole anything Mandalore, as you guys know from Rebels and the Clone Wars. Anything that has to do with Mandalore, I'm down for, and learning more Mandalorian history, I'm all down for. So this is just getting me pumped for when season 3 of the Mandalorian appears.
What about you, Hitch?
Man, this episode had everything I've been asking for out of season 3 of The Mandalorian. And it really filled in the backstory of what happened in between what I'm sure is going to be the big time jump at the beginning of that season 3. And, our main character for the Star Wars EU right now, which is Din. So we got to see what he's been up to. Like you said, DP, as soon as that Dark Saber came out and you knew this is happening after the events of Mando season 2. This isn't some crappy flashback. It's real. And we're going to see the Dark Saber in action. And it looks phenomenal. The effect on that is phenomenal. It looks correct. We get this weird, puritanical, silly approach from the Mandalorian coven about, if you've ever taken your helmet off, I guess you can't be down with them. This purity stuff is wild. I don't get it. Whatever. But we got to see a duel for the Dark Saber, and that was the first half of the episode. I mean, goodness gracious. You jam-packed that. You jam-packed an entire, a shipbuilding montage, which, as we discussed in Mandalorian Season 1, is always welcome. A lot of the flavors of Star Wars intersecting here. Just a really, really excellent episode. So happy to catch up with Mando. So glad to see that, he seems to know where Grogu is. Wow, I was not expecting to come on this show tonight and talk about Mando and Grogu and Beskar, what I mean, refineries and the Coven. I was expecting to talk about, the war between the Pikes and Boba Fett, but I guess they decided that we were all very good and paid for Disney Plus all year, and so we should get an Easter egg. And frankly, that's how I felt like this. That's how I felt like watching this episode. Excellent.
What about you, Kendo?
So they really should have called this episode the Easter egg, right? And I get what everyone's saying.
Grogu in the background.
Yeah, the social media and everything. I get it. This isn't the Book of Boba Fett. But on the other hand, what does that mean? A book. That's a lot of different stories that can come up, and it could be a different chapter, and you can have a chapter with characters that you never heard about in the first 4 chapters. So I think this was what, the Law and Order recipe is. This is a crossover event. So what we had was a nice little mix and a more backstory, and what's Mando doing now, and how is this going to fit in? Because it would have been pretty clumsy if we just started episode 5 and all of a sudden Din Djarin's working for Boba Fett. We wouldn't really know how that all happened and how he got back to Tatooine and what he was doing. So I accept this as another chapter in the Book of Boba Fett. Easter egg episode. Tons of stuff in here. All the way from this guy back here, an N1 starfighter, right, coming out of nowhere, replacing the Razor Crest, to the annoying TSA agent, just like reality, taking all his weapons from him. And he's just like, okay, I know what's in there. And the cops pulling him over when he's test driving his new ship. That ship, by the way, had a rattler on it, right? I mean, that was right out of Fast and the Furious.
Yeah.
Yep. I love the design. I love the design of the final design of this Chrome fighter. Awesome.
Loved it. If I see it on a shelf, I'm buying it. So I know that George was watching this episode with a tear in his eye, because this is something that's really important to him, and there was always a race, fast ship, cars. He loved cars. Hitch, you got your Beggars Run, pod racing.
Yep.
Right. This had everything in it. Loved it. Keep going with it. Yep. Check. So
yeah, I totally agree with everybody says as well. I mean, this is like when I saw the Dark Saber, they had me. I was ready to open my wallet and try to mysteriously buy another Disney Plus subscription. I was just going to buy another one. I was like, you can't do this to me. I looked at the runtime of the episode and I was just like in awe. I was like, oh my gosh, finally. I guess to be the devil's advocate and the one on there, I will say that I love the episode. I don't think this fits in the continuum of the series. If it was longer, I'd understand, but only being 7 episodes, it fits. I love the story and I love everything about it. To me, it was one of the best episodes out of the, Filoni verse, if we'll call it that now. But, we have 2 left, it looks like here. So we have to get a lot done, or maybe the Pike War is, the ending of this, chapter in the Book of Boba Fett. Maybe there may be a chapter, whatever, 8, 9, 10 to whatever. So all in all, the episode for itself was great. Love seeing Din again. Love being on Tatooine. Um, I do love the fact that now we know, as I hinted in other previous podcasts that hopefully you guys are listening and watching, that now we know that Grogu and Luke are on Tatooine, which is like mind blowing. I don't know why they're there now, but now he's going to see him there. Is Luke back at the Lars homestead that was, lost and covered up by sand? I mean, what can he be doing in Tatooine? There's so many questions. It's just, that kind of final Easter egg they dropped us there with that. I was just at a loss. As you guys said, always Mandalorian DP. I love the Mandalorian lore. Big Revan fan, which was arguably not a Mandalorian, but wielded a Mandalorian helmet. We got a little bit of pre-Vizsla, Tar Vizsla talk. Not a big fan of the Forger now, so I know you guys want to go into that. I'm just not a fan of her. Hopefully Bo-Katan can finish her off, but yeah, it was a weird one. It was a weird one. Me and Ken had a discussion this afternoon because I know a couple of you guys didn't see it, so we were talking about our theories on where it'll happen, where it'll go in, and we'll share those with you guys. So yeah, that was kind of my quick review, and let's open things up here, guys. Where can we start? Because I mean, literally, this was everywhere. I mean, so much stuff.
I mean, it's like okay.
Yeah,
so
your head's like
explosion. It's head blown because I was waiting for Boba, waiting for Boba, and it got like 4 minutes left, no Boba. But that's not a bad thing because I'm excited for the fact that we're not playing with traditional storytelling stuff. We're in the ages of streaming, whereas back in the day we had episodes and seasons and stuff. You told your stories within that, and you couldn't really cross over, unless it was like some sort of marketing ratings boost type thing, to other spinoffs or whatever. This is the overall Star Wars narrative, Star Wars, I guess if you want to call it TV universe or whatever. But to me, it's just another chapter in the Star Wars story. So when they want to deviate from from talking about Boba Fett to talking about our man Mando and everything, I'm good with that. I'm good. If they want to go that and then go back to Boba after that, I'm fine with that. So to say, okay, this is the Book of Boba Fett. It's supposed to be strictly about Boba Fett. That's it. To me, that's just. These are like, it's like the Wild West to like stream. It's like the Wild West to like storytelling structures. We're in a universal storytelling nowadays with Star Wars or Marvel. You could tell a story any type of way, and you have being that these corporations are in control of their own content, and what they put out. They can put out an episode of The Mandalorian in the middle of the Boba Fett episode. I mean, Boba Fett season, and still it still feel like it's a part of a whole. So I was excited. I was totally satisfied with the fact that they went there. I'm excited to see how this is going to wrap itself up, and how the end of Boba Fett season is going to be. But it's just a primer. It's definitely a primer if it was done on purpose for season 3 of Mandalorian whenever it comes.
Exactly. I was just going to say that. This episode, more backstory about Mando, more backstory about the Mandalore in general, and I think it's a good gateway to what we're going to see in season 3 of The Mandalorian. Plus, you've got this story of Boba Fett running underneath it, and they're all together. Everything's connected. Plus, they're calling out to the original Star Wars films, like chronically, like it's like they can't help themselves. They just have to do it. I mean, with the Jawas, the Treadwell droid, R5D4 is there. It was always what happened to him. Well, there he is. Just everything. I just saw so much, and just to confirm, so Docking Bay 94 that's where they were. Is that correct? I'm pretty sure that's where most of this episode took place. Right?
I have to look that up for clarification.
When Mando walked down the stairs, I mean, that was identical to when Luke Skywalker walked down and just looked out, and the Falcon was there, and just the background and all the machinery and the sensors on the wall. I mean, to me, that just looked the same. So, I mean, they're connecting things, they're bringing things back, they're reminding people. Maybe they're drawing like new fans into maybe going back and looking at the old stuff. But like DP said, this is a great way to segue and get us into season 3, episode 1 of The Mandalorian. Great job. And Howard's daughter did this too? I mean, come on.
Oh yeah, Bryce Howard. Yeah.
She's been a slam dunk on all her episodes, to be honest. I said that before every episode, slam dunk.
Everything that girl touches, that family touches, is gold. So,
to confirm, that was Docking Bay 94 on Mos Eisley, used by Han Solo as well.
Great callback.
Good catch, man.
So just so much great stuff, and I mean, it was great.
I think it's awesome that, like, you know, flashback 5 years and say, you know, we were all real excited to take a break from that Boba Fett series to see this other rando character that you don't know anything about show up. And we were all universally stoked that they took a whole damn hour out of the show to show us what happened in the interim. And if you'll remember, one of the things I was talking about when we were talking about the potentiality of telling stories like this was the ability to present chapters of this story in the order you want to present them. And listen, chronologically, this episode of television should come before the next couple episodes where we have the crossover, right? And could there be more there? Could there have been more plot in between this and you know, tell us more about where Bo-Katan is and, you know, yeah. But this is what you need to know about what is going on with Din, so that you don't have a lot of questions about what's going on with him the whole time he's on screen. You can't enjoy it.
Right.
I mean, if you think about it, you'd be like, where's Grogu? Is Grogu there? Is that Grogu with him? Where's Grogu going to come out? Is he going to come out? You'd be doing that the whole time he was on screen, so they get that all out of the way. They're like, okay, yes, he has the Dark Saber.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yes, he's kind of crappy with it. No, he's not going back to the Mandalorians. Yes, he does know where Grogu is. No, Grogu's not coming out, right? So all those things are lined up, and they show you how they all work. They give you a little bit of a fun, you know, a couple fun scenes here with Amy Sedaris, who's always welcome, in my opinion, in the Star Wars universe.
She dated Jawa.
That's right. She even dated a Jawa.
A furry one.
Furry.
She enjoyed it. We found out.
A furry.
That's why she only works with droids now. I just really enjoyed the way they did that. But if you'll remember, I posited that there was an opportunity for them to tell the stories in whatever order they wanted. And this is just a prime example of that. There needs to be this prequel. And if you really think about it, if they're shaving an hour off that season 3 to put it here, right? It's totally fine. It doesn't really mess with the storytelling convention. Everybody's going to watch it. It's exactly the way what other medium does this all the time, where they would just be like, oh my God, it's Magneto, but he looks like he's 24. And then they'd be like, here's what happened. And they show you, like,
right,
you know, comic books did this stuff.
Comic books, yep.
So you'd be like, how did why is Magneto calling himself Joseph? You know what I mean? That was a weird one. You know, that's probably why.
After the cliffhanger of the last issue, you got a whole issue, and you got to wait another month to get right back to the story. So this is, just like that.
So we're inured to this. I mean, this is our generation and the audience of this. You know, comic books are not a medium that we have existed for the entire lifespan of basically everybody watching this. So they all know these conventions. And so when you see them applied in a new way, in a new medium, it makes sense. And that's why, even though you are correct, if you're saying diegetically, is this an episode of the Book of Boba Fett or is this an episode of The Mandalorian, you would have a point. But at the same time, shut up, because it's awesome.
You know what's crazy though about this, you know, we talk about our shows, like, think about this. How excited are we of this show because of who? Din Djarin. And this is the thing that we talked about before Boba came out, is if Din comes on, who takes over the show? Because to be honest, Boba Fett is good. Bro, all I'm worried about is where Din is now. Like, I would be honest. Like, you know, I saw the Dark Saber. We saw where the Forger, they survived. I mean, like, my mind now is racing. Like I'm ready for Mandalorian season 3, and the expectation now, kind of like Marvel was set with their movie, bro. Like these last 2 episodes, like they have to be like earth shattering. Like you know what I mean? They have to be
to the point where you were kind of surprised that they even took the detour for Mandalorian for this episode, because they got so much ground. They got a lot of ground to cover these next 2 episodes. Where I thought that it should have been 3 episodes in a row for them to cover, for the back end. But they took a detour.
But if they have to come back in the middle of Mandalorian season 3 to wrap up the story of Boba Fett and tell us the epilogue, right? To give us that epilogue episode, then it's going to work.
Oh, it will. It definitely will work.
We don't even know what's going on with these other characters until they intersect with, quote, the main narrative. And Filoni is who, well, Disney, I don't know. We'll just say Filoni. But they're the ones that are deciding what that is, right? Where's the point of view going to be? Right. So it's a totally legitimate storytelling device. And it's a creative use of it, frankly. So I'm all about it. And it's one of those things where it's like, Star Wars is almost like, it's like CBS. You know what I mean? It's its own network on Disney Plus. Yeah. They're treating it that way. So we're getting this programming schedule that's about to become, it's going to be multiples of this, right? Where we're going to have...
It's getting close to being weekly here when you see these launches coming out.
Mm-hmm. And so it's almost like having, Walt Disney Presents. It's like Walt Disney Presents Star Wars this week, an episode of The Mandalorian. And it works because it's the next thing you need to know in the story, so that when we see teaming up with Boba Fett again, which we know is awesome, we are thinking about this crossover and this team up, and our mind isn't on the future, right? Where we are going, not where we are, right? What's that Yoda line? I'm not going to do it.
Yeah, I mean, it's
the season of The Mandalorian. Season 3 is going to have Boba Fett in it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's going to be combined. I mean, there's going to be episodes that are going to be all in Djarin. There's going to be episodes that are going to have Boba Fett. I mean, it's going to be, because they're going to be working together. So it just makes sense.
Yeah, it's kind of like their Avengers moment. They're assembling their team here, so we're starting to see the groundwork, as we say, of this team starting to assemble. So I'm liking it. The funny thing me and Ken were talking about, bro, and we can move on to this point, how big of an ass is the Forger, right? So me and Ken were talking about it, and I'll kind of skip to the middle of it before we even talk about how she basically outlaws him like they did Ahsoka and the parallel there. But dude comes up to her excited and is like, "Hey, look, I got a Dark Saber." She's like, "What? Okay, let me look at it." He's like, "Hey, look, I got this cool spear from a Jedi." She's like, "A Jedi?" He's like, "Yeah, spear." She's basically like, "Hey, dumbass, this is a anti-Mandalorian weapon. Throw this away. Let me get." I was sitting there because he's excited to show it to her, and she's like, "You know what this is?" He's like, "Yeah, it's a spear that can deflect lightsaber blades." And she's like, "Yeah, and it also pierces Beskar." I'm like, "Cool, way to kill his vibe." Dude's excited as hell, and you just ruined his whole moment.
Total.
She is.
She's the worst type of fan because she's a stickler for the lore. And if you try to say, well, maybe I'm going to go in this direction, she's going to say, that's not how it is. You can't do it like that. And you're going to, and you just hate that. You just hate that sort of that sticklery stuff.
She portrays like that grandmother with the wooden spoon. Every time you did something wrong, you got the little pop with a wooden spoon. That's how she portrays, especially when she's training him. I'm just there like, it's like your old school kind of that grandma. And that student teacher type thing, but
my grandma never swung a hammer on me. I mean, that's never hasn't happened yet, but there's time.
All right, so let's talk about the Dark Saber here.
Yes, we got to start off with Dark Saber cutting the dude in half, and then presumably cutting his head off. I mean, that's pretty metal stuff.
Hey, okay, so they had to clean up, some plot holes that
from Rebels,
That was hilarious the way they cleaned it up, but I'm glad they did. Of course, it made sense, and it seems like they added some more backstory to Dark Saber. I had no idea that the more that you held it, the weightier it got.
When you aren't using it correctly, when you're fighting it instead of fighting your opponent, it works against you.
Yeah, it works against you. So I mean, if I can't remember if they did that in any other description of the Dark Saber, but that was new to me. You
Yeah.
know,
Not too many people wielded it, so it was one of those things that as you heard from the Forger, I mean, the really only people that knew were the Vizslas, Sabine, Moff Gideon, and obviously the ones who built it, which was the other Mandalorian's family, which is crazy. How about that? Ken was talking about that. How he's like, my family, my ancestors built that weapon. It's mine. I'm like,
yeah, no, that's super crazy. So I mean, so all the other people who I seen welded before Din Djarin, welded it pretty easy.
Right.
So that was like some sort of new information about the Dark Saber that I thought was pretty unique, pretty decent, and still a way of trying to clean this whole thing up of who's worthy of it, but knowing what we got from like Rebels and Clone Wars and everything is really interesting how they cleaned up the fact of how it passed on to Din, and how it got taken from Bo-Katan. A backstory from like Bo-Katan as well. I mean, she's like, I can't wait to
her series will clean a lot up too.
To get some more, the backstory, the flashback of Mandalore, being destroyed and everything.
Scourging of Mandalore, the night of 1,000 years.
That was crazy. That was crazy. Yes. Give me some more of that. Give me anything. If season 3 of The Mandalorian isn't called The Mandalorians, they're missing an opportunity right there.
We talked about it. I mean, you're alluding to it with Bo-Katan, how the Forger and her, obviously Death Watch and the way they view the life, and I mean, she dismisses her and says she's just a myth. Like she doesn't even know she's still alive. And bro's literally like, I'm flying with her, bro. Like we're cool. Yeah. So that was kind of funny because she's dismissing that she's still alive, and dude's like, yeah, let me call her up real quick.
She dropped me off. She got here.
She dropped me off on a light cruiser. Right. I have 2 Jedi on speed dial. Literally, not one, but I know 2 Jedi. It was just.
She is so stuck in the ways and everything. Like you guys were saying about the grandma and being stuck. I mean, when you get as old or as like religious, of when you hold on to beliefs so strong, when you see somebody going outside of the way, then you are going to criticize them because that's all especially with pastors, religious people who are really deep into it, old grandmothers who will hold on tight to to what they were taught. They don't want to be taught anything outside of what they know.
And what did she say about Jedi? Jedi can't be attached to things. Yeah. And what happens when a Jedi becomes attached to something? Mm-hmm. Darth Vader.
Yeah. Amongst them.
So there is something to keeping tradition, to keeping with the path, the way things are supposed to be. So she has a point. I mean, you can't
to a degree.
But rigidness in the face of like rigid adherence to those standards is literally the story of the collapse of the Jedi Order too.
Right.
So it parallels that as well. And we know for a fact that you can, in fact, be too dogmatic and rigid in this universe. It's very easy to do that. And, even clairvoyant beings that can see versions of the future, could still have that problem. It's a really interesting way for them to parallel that. And again, I think it speaks to the way, it's not just the fandom that acts like this, that's puritanical. It's society and people too. And that is an interesting way to humanize these characters that are, I mean, if they're humanoid, right? They have these masks on. They look like astronauts, pretty much, and it makes you feel, a connection to them. It's interesting.
The interesting part is though, as I talked about the parallel between his banishment from being a Mandalorian to Ahsoka Tano's banishment from the Jedi. It kind of makes you think, this Boba Fett, and we see Boba Fett, his effect on the syndicates and, the underworld and how he's changing it in the view. It makes you seem to think that, like, Din Djarin is technically still a Mandalorian. Like, she can say that maybe he's not a Mandalorian by their creed, but who says that he doesn't go to rule Mandalore and changes things just like Boba Fett has done with the how the
And
underworld
he can live under that name.
Yeah.
I mean, what are they going to do? Come after him?
I mean, Bo-Katan, it literally is royalty from another lineage of another clan of Mandalorian, so she can turn around and say, "You're still a Mandalorian." So I was kind of like, "Eh."
It's the same thing we said about Boba Fett too, right? It's the same situation as Boba Fett, where he has been like, Django is excommunicated for whatever, whatever underhanded, stuff that Django is doing, and so it puts them in the same boat. But it makes them natural allies because they're subject to the same sort of discrimination from, the, I don't know, reactionary. Is that the right word for them? The reactionary Mandalorians?
I guess, yeah,
extreme
basically.
Mandalorians.
Yeah,
that are
extremists.
Yeah,
that's what they were labeled as in previous seasons, right? When we talked about it, yeah, they were extremists.
Man, what a great time to have finished a rewatch of Rebels. I mean, honestly, this has been a Rebels, and we have. If you don't know this, you should check out our other shows because we review the cartoons and we've watched through all the Clone Wars and all of Rebels now. And man, oh man, you need to watch Rebels if you're going to be into these TV shows, into the modern Star Wars, the Filoni-verse, because so many of these plot items are introduced and explained in Rebels, including, as we may have discussed recently on our other feed for Carbonite Bounty BS, the plot device that will save the day and redo the sequel trilogy. So check those episodes out.
We're on the way there, man. Definitely.
Yeah, right?
We're on the way for sure.
But it's so great to see all these different themes, like the Dark Saber and the Mandalorians, and the end of Mandalore, which has been spoken about but never shown.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah.
And that's something we're only talking about now, which is, again, a credit to how good the episode is, that you could drop a piece of canon information that is that important and that early in the episode, have it stick, and then the rest of the episode is like an acceleration. Like it gets better and better and better until you find out, they're gonna come find it.
DP, it's crazy. We were just talking about this. There's only 2 episodes, right? So we're probably going to get another big piece of Din. We're probably going to see, I imagine, a deep fake Luke or whoever Luke is. I can't imagine.
So you drop the whole Grogu thing at the end of the episode.
So he's
totally unexpected.
Yeah,
and we know where Grogu is, and we know who's with him. So to have that, like, are you really? Is that where you're going in the Book of Boba Fett?
They're going to have to show some of it.
On Tatooine.
He said that they're there. He can't leave Tatooine because he has to meet up with them, right?
Well, he has to meet a little friend. He said, "I didn't catch."
I don't. I'm assuming that he's there. Yeah, I don't know if he's flying out or not.
It'd be quite the tease for there to be another small friend for him to meet on Tatooine.
And the starship now, she took out the astromech pod, and it's got a little dome on it, so that's where Grogu's going to sit because he's got to go somewhere to get him and bring him back.
Holly looked at me when they did that and just said, "That's a hell of a check to write." And just watching the episode.
I think she is definitely right about that. Because it's questions like, why would he pick up Grogu so quickly?
He's not
everything.
Yeah.
But by the episode, to the episode's credit, he did say all he wants to do is just check on him. That's it. Check on him and make sure that he's okay. Because he's already, built a bond. They got a bond together. He wants to check on his boy, make sure he's okay. Because generally, if you leaving your kid with some unknown stranger that says he's a, he's
he says he's Luke Skywalker. He said he was a Jedi. He was hacking down these people with a yellow sword.
I don't know how
a green sword.
I've never seen a not Jedi do that.
Right.
So you tell me. Here's an interesting thought.
Now, Hitch, you just had a foundling. You know what I'm saying? Yes. Someone comes to your door and says they need to train.
I need this baby. My name is Luke Skywalker.
Yeah, and what are you going to do? Like, you give him up?
Do you give him up?
I looked at George. Georgie, and she looks up like. Here's an interesting thought that just crossed my mind. We're talking about, if Grogu and Luke are on Tatooine. If they are, and let's say they are at the Lars homestead, right? That makes that a pretty interesting nexus point in the Force when you consider it's where Luke lived. It was the place they took Luke to protect him, right? It's also the place that, Anakin had his dark side moment, and it's the place where Rey eventually takes Anakin's lightsaber and buries the Jedi books there.
Correct.
So it's interesting to think about, how that is at a nexus point in the Force, just like those Jedi temples that we would encounter in the other medium, like Rogue One, even and Rebels. So that's kind of an interesting thought, and it would make sense for Luke to be on Tatooine. It's his home planet. It's from there. Be like, if I was going to start a Jedi school, I mean, it would probably be either in Pittsburgh or Wheeling, right? It wouldn't be in like Tucson. Like, I wouldn't do that, right? It'd be dumb.
Unless you just really hated the cold,
Look, it's the ability to get DeCarlo's Pizza on demand.
Oh, there we are. There's our shout out. There's our reference. There we go. I love it. South Wheeling, please. Elm Grove. We'll go Elm Grove.
Elm Grove, Patsy's is good,
yeah.
but I'm a Glendale native, so I'm a
of course.
I'm a Glendale DeCarlo's kid. What can I say?
Of course. But the cool part about this too is we're talking. We're building the team up. We know Bo-Katan's out there. She has a series potentially coming out. So we're asking for these legacy characters. Where's the Sabine reference at? Because we hear the Forger talking about Bo-Katan's. She's just some myth. She doesn't even exist. Nobody knows where she's been. Sabine's still around. Sabine's handed off the saber. We know that she's looking for Ezra now. We know that Ahsoka's looking for Ezra now. They're going planet to planet.
So you got Boba, you got Fennec Shan.
There's a team. It's coming together.
You got Mando. You got Grogu. You got Ahsoka. You got Sabine. And if they top this off with Ezra Bridger coming back, come on, that's the Avengers right there, right?
I don't. Yeah, huh? Ezra's a tough one. I think they're gonna have to save that for a while.
Ooh. Yeah. Man, I want to see at the end of the Ahsoka season, right? That's
but she would have to literally go out to the unknown regions, which I don't think she ever makes it. So the Ahsoka, the Ezra Bridger one's always been the tough one for me, and I told you guys that when we started talking even about the original sequel trilogy. Like the Ezra story is a tough one because him and Thrawn are in the unknown regions. Essentially, when the time gets there, that's where the Palpatine is now. So at this point, Palpatine is there now. So
that sounds like
it'll be
own series then.
It is. It is. That maybe that's the Thrawn series. Maybe that's. I don't know.
Thrawn series? Oh, you had me at Thrawn series.
That's the end game, right? That's the whole kind of Thanos kind of. That's where we get to, and we're looking like it's going to be. There's nobody else.
You can't say Thrawn and him not be the big bad of
right.
the phase of of Star Wars TV, right? So it's all sort of leading up to when does Thrawn show up, and why does this particular band of mercenaries or fellowship, why does this fellowship of the killing Thrawn need to get together, and how do they get together? And then what do they do, right?
Yeah, right.
How crazy would this be, literally, Hitch, if they go to the unknown regions and it's like this group versus the Chiss, bro? Because maybe they make it to he gets to his home. How crazy would that be? You talk about like Endgame.
The Chiss are awesome, man, and the Chiss are really awesome. They're a really cool society, and they're the Chiss ascendants.
What would Thrawn be doing now?
Well, right now, they crash landed somewhere, so basically nobody knows what the hell is going on. Think about Ezra has no lightsaber, Thrawn has no guns, so they're on some planet in the unknown regions. They probably have no communications.
Well, that makes Ezra in charge.
Yeah, essentially they become
no weapons.
Yeah, essentially they become friends at some point. I believe they kind of get that understanding of. So it's an interesting story. Everybody's talked about it. They hinted to it in the books a little bit, but nothing finite. So that's the big story. Outside of this whole, this search for him. So we have those two finite stories. Obviously, the Forger said he's completed his quest. He's dropped off the child. He's assembled. He's now, got the Dark Saber, which it was funny. That whole mission, this whole scene. She looks at him like, "You have it." And then, the way she ignites it, it's real. She's, stunned, basically, dude, you're dumb. How did you get this? The way she kind of played him in the backstory, I was just
I gotta watch that again. I didn't get, but
her tone, how she is so sarcastic. She's
that's the way she's always been, though.
Right.
but I kind of see where you're coming from. I mean, like, dude, you're not like,
Yeah,
are you the one?
Definitely,
exactly. And then when he's wielding it, she's sitting there
Yeah.
shaking her head like, I cannot believe this guy has the Dark Saber.
You?
But the thing is,
you?
you cannot create something new by adhering to the past, by adhering
Right.
to rigid dogma, because if you do that, all you can do is recreate the past. To innovate, you have to do new things, and the Forger's just not willing to allow Din to do this. And it's insane that your helmet coming off is the thing. I mean, you're telling me, and I just need to make sure this is clear. This guy can kill them off, right? Can kill them off, can get revenge for Mandalore, and his hat falls off, and he's excommunicated from his religion.
and that ruins him. Yeah.
You know the more interesting thing, though? So they're on this planet, right, which is the docking bay. You have to wonder, you have to think, who's the one who told her he lost his helmet? Because she's been communicated that, because it was a specific question at a specific time. Somebody has said something to her. They've been tipped by somebody or something.
I mean, the way she phrased those questions, she was fishing and digging.
She knew.
Are you going to lie to me? Are you going to, are you going to tell me the truth?
She already knew because she's gets repeatedly asked.
It appeared like she knew something. It'll be interesting to see, how that develops. The whole spinning planet, that was pretty decent.
Yeah,
I've never seen anything like that before.
Great. I mean, that was right out of like the Foundation series. I mean, that was Isaac Asimov, 2001: A Space Odyssey. Crazy, and that I wonder how they had to live because the light and the dark was constantly moving.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a Dyson ring, and it's a ring that exists around a star. In this case, probably like a white dwarf. And it only has to be, a certain, I think it's like at that size, it only has to be 10 kilometers high, like the walls on the edge. And it'll actually hold all the atmosphere in because of this force of it spinning around.
Mm-hmm.
And those day and light things are caused by mirrors that focus the sunlight so you can grow things. There's a lot of really interesting hard sci-fi that talks about these things. The Dyson Ring is also a precursor to a Dyson Sphere, which is a whole bunch of satellites wrapping around a star to capture every single bit of radiation the star produces for power. And it has been posited that we would be able to find empires of interplanetary societies because we would find regions of space that would be dim because the stars in those areas would all be covered by these things. Also, these rings would be detectable as they what do they call it? Transition or I can't remember the word, but as they go across the star, we'd be able to see them because the star would dim. And we can't find any of those things anywhere. None of them. Anyway, that's an interesting thing.
Yeah.
It's called the Fermi Paradox. I get into that. Sorry, guys.
I mean, it happened a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, so it must have happened. So, it must exist
It's
somewhere.
happening right now somewhere.
Their societies are so old that these could be like, this ring could be a legacy thing that was created so long ago that nobody knows who made it. These mega structures in Star Wars are sometimes attributed to just builders. Like that's all they call them.
Yeah.
Like Center Point Station, right?
Yeah, so we had the cops coming to try to pull
Pull Din
Djarin over. And then the way they was trying to grill him, and then he just escaped and just pressed the turbo boost.
Do all that paperwork.
Hey man, are you scared of spiders?
Yeah. License and registration, please.
Knight Rider,
Yeah. The license and registration had me. I said, yeah. Can you send me that that beam again? Yeah. Could you send me your beam?
Like, no, I'm not about to stay here. I know I got turbo boost here, right? Yeah. The I think you alluded to earlier, Ken. The when he was testing out the ship and everything and flying through like the different stuff reminded me like the pod races and everything.
That's what that was. That canyon there was a pod race canyon. That was the Easter egg.
Yeah, 100% was the same.
Yeah.
Same.
That was the same run.
Same move that Anakin did in Pod Race.
Too much.
Yeah, that's where it had me when he was going through the canyons. I'm like, oh my god, this is the pod race. Like this is like
oh my god, that is crazy.
Yeah.
That is crazy.
Yeah, they're just really sticking your nose. There was nothing wrong with the prequel trilogy. Look, see, it was fine. You just didn't want to like it.
You got all the elements there and everything. Yeah, he was digging that and testing it out. I mean, it was a it was. I'm amazed. I can see all this like on the big screen and everything. It would do just as great on the big screen as it is doing right now on the small screen and everything with everything that we're seeing right now. Yes, this was a great episode of the Book of Boba Fett. With the Mandalorian Interlude, if we want to call it that. Fennec Shand showing up at the end. Why was she all the way up there?
They remember they locked her out, so she climbed over the top to get in.
Oh, is that?
Yeah, they locked the front door
down to the ceiling.
She just jumped.
Yeah,
gotcha. Okay, I was like, why you want to make your interest from all the way up there and everything? Oh man.
Yeah, I was hoping when he was buying the parts that we were going to see Watto. That was my only thing I was holding out for. When she was like, "I can get the parts from anywhere," I was like, "Oh my gosh, is she going to buy it from Watto?" Like
Watto, pull everything off Watto.
The boy.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
I'm a slaveholder. What? I love slaves.
Is it weird though that we didn't even see Boba in this episode?
No.
If it's an interlude, no, like you're saying, I get it. I mean, all books have interludes. I mean, look at the preludes, and especially in Star Wars novels, I will say that they do have these parts where kind of like, let's just like cut the book, and they'll just jump into something else. So I did notice that in the graphic novels.
Yeah, I think
Alan Card was born.
You didn't see Boba.
Right?
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't necessarily, and plus, if you even put him in, at the end there, I still don't think it would have fit. Him sending Fennec to get Mando and everything fit right into like the whole overall narrative of him recruiting, Boba and everything. I do want to see this end of Boba. I do want to see more of him and more of him, us understanding, his motivations and everything, and why he's doing, everything he's doing to get this, to fight this war that's happening. I'm interested to see how this war is going to play out in the whole bigger overall scheme of things. Is it just a play for just his story, or is these just things of getting his army together for like the bigger, end game per se type, thing?
I personally think we're only 2 episodes, and we know that Din's going to have a part in this next episode to see Grogu at some point. With the runtime, unless they're each probably 50 minutes, I don't think this season ends with the war ending with the Pikes, which would be a great cliffhanger. They can't end the war in 2 episodes.
It would be too big.
You can't.
Too big and too fast, and we would all be mad. We'd all be like,
If anything, you'll see him riding his creature. What is it? What was it? The Bantha.
The Rancor.
The Rancor. I'm sorry. Yeah, the Rancor. He'll
ride that Rancor.
He'll ride his Rancor in it, and that's where probably the season will end somewhere in between battle. Maybe some people taking some damage, but they can't end the war in essentially an hour and a half. I mean, I guess they could, but I hope they don't, because they got a good thing to cut it off. You got to
bring Danny Trejo back. You got to cover a lot of ground here. You got Stephen Root out there. Yeah. I mean, you've got to give some justice out to some guest stars, and you've got to mete out some vengeance here.
Yeah,
there's a lot to get done. You're right. 2 episodes feels like a long time, but it really isn't. But I will say this: it was nice to see them not shy away from graphic violence, and in some ways, isn't that why
he was chopping stuff up with that Dark Saber, wasn't he?
Bro, he got you see how he bit his hand up? I was like, ooh, like that felt like when he bit his hand off the bat, I'm like, ooh. Then he gets his leg seared open. Like, I was like, man, it was pretty graphic.
Yeah, he took some damage.
Yeah.
Like, for sure.
No back to tank, though. He heals without the back to tank.
No. Action damage, Mando.
And seeing Mando in his armor, and it's sort of like a little jarring to see Mando in his shiny armor and everything, knowing what we see with Boba Fett. And it still brings close to home, like, these two have like Beskar armor and everything, and Mando has the better of the armor and stuff. When they first announced Boba Fett, people were so excited about Boba Fett getting the movie and coming on the scene and everything, and then we ended up getting the Mandalorian. So we don't know anything about that. So what's going on with that? It would have seemed like Boba should have been like, I think we covered this like a couple weeks ago last week, that he should have been the Mandalorian, and we should have been learning a little bit more about the Mandalorian through like Boba Fett, like sort of like switch roles and everything. It seems like Mando was getting a better backstory of what Boba could have been. He seems a little bit more interesting than what we see with Boba Fett so far. You know,
Mhm.
not to say that Boba Fett can't end off a lot better, but if you're trying to compare the two with them having similar armor from what we see, especially if you're like a casual coming into like the story, Mando he's the more interesting character.
He's definitely shinier. He definitely has more tech, and we definitely have
Yeah.
seen him use it a little bit more than we've
Yeah.
seen Boba Fett. But
Yeah.
it's coming. I mean, we
Okay. All right.
they gotta build it up a little bit, and there's a lot of opportunity coming up in the next year. So
Yeah. You know, it's a shame. You know, as we end this week's as this podcast and ultimately this live show, like the excitement, we guys get. I mean, I'm sure you guys see us on camera, or if you're listening to us, how we are. I mean, I just count down the days till like Tuesday night again. It's just crazy. Like Disney, like you know, I don't want to say this in that analogy, but it's like I'm fiending for it. You know what I mean? Like I need it to be next Tuesday night already. I need it.
So what time did you get up this morning to watch the episodes?
Like 7.
Okay.
I'm not staying up late night anymore because when I watch it, my view is too I'm too harsh, because I'm half asleep. So I'll give it a little bit of time. I'll wake up and then I watch it once. I'll usually message Ken like, "Hey, did you watch it?" And then I'll start messaging him, and then I'll try to watch it again in the afternoon.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, that episode had me. I just couldn't believe it, like we all discussed. As soon as I saw the Dark Saber off the bat, I was like, "What?" Because when I saw that, yeah.
Yeah, I thought, man, is this Saw? Did they get the Saw set and go in there like, what is this? And all of a sudden, Mando comes in, and then there's
how about
meat hanging from the ceiling,
and how about our Terminator? How about our Terminator moments in there? With
Terminator, exactly.
We get the Terminator, call back, references and stuff. That was pretty funny. That was a scene straight out of like the beginning of the Terminator and stuff. But yeah, that was straight Saw all the way. I mean, what the stuff that they figured they could put into these, Disney Plus, or what they could get away with, they got away with it in this episode. It was
they definitely walked that line, especially with the violence. Yeah, they definitely walked the line.
Yeah. I wouldn't be opposed to having. You don't need to make a series of what happened in Mandalore. Now that we had this type of story type structure, you don't necessarily have to have another season or another. I will be fine with a one shot or a movie strictly on what happened in Mandalore. That's it.
Yeah.
You don't need a season. Just what happened in Mandalore last days or last hours leading up to this, and it leads up to like another season of whatever future series is coming out.
It's like a 2-hour movie.
Yeah,
I'd like to see it like you're saying, like they did with Rogue One. I'd like to see this movie called Star Wars Mandalore. That's it. And they can. I mean, literally, it would be like kind of just like Rogue One. It would be, the sacrifice of these people and who escaped, and it would tie perfectly into this. Yeah, it would tie perfectly into this.
Yeah.
Or thrown to the wind, right? Thrown to the wind. Everyone's thrown to the wind. The foragers. It's like, they would be thrown to the wind.
Yeah. It's kind of like those space movies when they like shoot them out the chute. They jettison them out into space, so to speak.
Yeah.
I mean. Right. Every movie has that. Somebody gets jettisoned off the ship.
You got to do that. That's
part of the hatch. It is.
It's a great classic.
Right? It is. Yeah.
What's the point of having space? Space only exists as an antagonist if it can take somebody, and that's how you do it.
Yeah.
It's like opening up the door on a submarine.
Hey, Hitch, they do it every 6 seconds in Expanse, right?
Well, Expanse is hard. So, listen, I still have not seen season 6 because I wanted to wait till
I haven't watched it yet either.
I'm very excited to do that myself. But listen, we've had lots of Star Wars obligations, and I have a.
Hey, we're dealing with a Space Odyssey right now. Great episode.
Yeah,
great
this
episode.
is a good mid-season point. This is a good jump-off point too, because there's going to be a couple episodes of this, and then we're going to be feeding right into the next, the next cycle with Kenobi and Cassian and whatever the next seasons of however they're going to orient the next season of Bad Batch. And it's interesting how now that we're sort of finishing up these now that we're sort of finishing up these prerequisites, I feel so much more like I understand so much more of the depth of what's going on in Mandalorian. So I feel like if you are a person who's enjoyed any of these seasons, that you really should watch at least Rebels, because Rebels is like important. Like a lot of these plot elements are just basically threads that are continuing from Rebels.
Right.
Well, guys, like I said, fun week again, and appreciate everybody coming on. Appreciate us getting Kendo today from our usual Admiral Tarkin, or Ken out of Ken. So, yeah, guys,
He got all the toys.
He does, man. This guy. If you need Star Wars toys and need to know where they are, ask this guy. He's the one. Definitely. But yeah, thanks everybody for tuning in again, and until next week, guys. This is the way.
This is the way.
Or is it?